Okay, hi. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining for this amazing webinar we have put up with Blockchain India and the Blockchain School. My name is Ashish. I am the Business Development Manager and the Venture Associate from Draper Startup House. We're so excited, this idea. I think so. We thought of doing. We were just chatting. Me and Saurabh was chatting on Monday. Discussing on everything about blockchain, what we thought it would be a great idea to break the myth of what people understand about blockchain, right? And the benefits of it within your startups and businesses that you can use, right? So this came with a really good experiment. Suddenly we hanged out together, said, guys, let's just put it out. So here we are, in this amazing webinar for you, right, on trying to break the myth of blockchain. So a little bit about Draper Startup House. We are a global chain of, I would say, community co-living spaces meant to help entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So, Akshay, I think.
Yeah, so I mean,
Mhm.
we will let Ashish come back right in, but I'll use this opportunity until then, right? So I'm here on behalf of Blockchain India, as a community partner to the amazing meetup that all of them have hosted. Uh, let us get back Ashish right in, and then I'll take ahead my introduction.
Awesome. So sorry, guys. Having some network issues on my end. We live in the virtual world right now. So as I was saying, Draper Startup House is all on a mission to enable around a million entrepreneurs by 2030 by creating a sort of these co-living spaces, community spaces across the globe, meant for startups and entrepreneurs to get whatever support they need with respect to working with like-minded folks or finding a mentor or finding an investor. We help out in any every levels possible. So that's about Draper Startups. Not too much about it. We can throughout the event we'll keep sending you information on the chat. So happy to speak to you guys late post this. Meanwhile, let me introduce to you Akshay. Right. In fact, Akshay, has been one of our fellow of Draper University himself. So, without further ado, Akshay, give us limelight about your experience starting from DU and then start getting started on blockchain in India.
So thank you so much, Ashish, for giving me the opportunity to be a part of this initiative. First of all, I'm representing Blockchain India here, which is one of the largest blockchain communities in the country. We have about 25,000 plus members, right? So, starting from Draper University about 6 years back, I was working in the product startup space. Started a live streaming company which got selected for incubation at the Draper University, right? And which was then supported through the Dream Ventures, which is like $27 million arm. And post exiting that startup, I got introduced to the blockchain space through Tim Draper and another partner, Andy Tang of the venture fund. Right. So since then, it has been about evangelizing adoption a lot for me. Right. We started back in 2016 when there were rarely any talks happening around technology. There were still a few meetups happening around how to invest. In cryptocurrency. So we had some amazing exchange driven meetups, but there was genuinely a lack of information around how can we use technology to build various kind of applications. And since my focus was product and startups, I fit right in. Right. So yeah, to sort of cut short the whole thing, in 3 years we have about 28,000 members. We work with some of the best companies, Consensus, R3, Cosmos, Tezos, Open Application Network, Algorand, Chain Security. So yeah, so we've helped create through the community a bridge or an interface between our members and these best projects or visions around the world, right? So it's all about coming, networking, sharing some insights around what you're doing in the blockchain space, what you've learned while you were building your products or working for a company that's majorly servicing or doing some bits or pieces with blockchain, right? And then more or less it's about knowledge sharing. So share and learn from rest of the community members. Yeah, so I'm excited to be here, and I'll quickly give it back to Ashish. Really nice of you, Ashish, to organize this.
Hey, no further thanks, man. I hope that was a very gist of what you guys do. Right. So Akshay will come back again, on the final note as well, talking more about how you can yourself be a part of that community and learn. So without further ado, I really want to welcome our speakers for today: Saurabh Sharma, founder of the Blockchain School, and Tejaswani, founder of Lendrab. Right. Saurabh, thank you so much for joining in. Right. It's great to have you guys here, young guys, coming out of the blood to create something in this community, right? We all love that energy coming through. Otherwise, it's just a soul horse, right? So, Saurabh, why don't you tell the audience about yourself? How did you start this out? What was the motivation, inspiration behind what you do right now?
Okay, thanks, Ashish. Yeah, so mine was a little bit of a roller coaster journey. I started as a blogger into multiple things. I used to write about gadgets. I used to write about multiple technologies, and eventually, while moving ahead, I figured out something called Bitcoin. I came across this term, and I saw there was a immense hype around the community about this thing, and I thought I was very much interested in the technological side of things, and that's where I started researching about it, and that's where blockchain happened. Initial phase of my journey was just writing about blockchain, but then eventually I became a marketer for blockchain companies. I used to help few companies around from around the Asia. One was from Spain, Malaysia, to actually get their footfall in the Indian market and some of the Asian regions. So that's how blockchain happened. But eventually, when I started traveling a lot, that's where I understood. As India was very much known for producing software developers in masses, I think even for the blockchain, we should be stand first. And the only thing that was lagging on scale was awareness. The similar thing that blockchain India have kept a vision to actually aware more and more audience with blockchain technology. Blockchain School was just thinking to do something similar, but focusing on two core pillars, one as an education and one as an employment. So that's how my journey about blockchain school and blockchain technology happened. That's it. So I think Tejas, when you can go ahead.
Yeah. So, hi, my name is Tejaswini, and I work in PricewaterhouseCoopers since 6 years as a consultant. And coming to my blockchain knowledge, like I was so fascinated with this technology last year, and I started exploring it, and that's when Akshay came with 100 days of code to my company for a session, and then I came to know about much more about it, and I was so interested to join that program. And once I joined, like 4 months back, it was a very interesting journey with the 100 days of code. I came to know a lot more things while exploring there. And coming to that, like we once I completed the course, so we had to come up with an idea, and there Akshay and Manav has mentored us, and uh, they have nourished our idea in such a way that we can present it to the pitch which happened last week. So my idea was, its name is Lendrav, and it helps startups to give debt financing. And then so I was the winner of the pitch, and I had the Open Application Network team has funded me the first award, and also gave the Draper University gave me scholarship for it. And that's about it. And also if anyone is interested and do be a part of my startup, then you're free to reach out to me.
Awesome. Thank you. So Saurabh, right?
Yeah,
I'll let you take this forward, right? Because like
sure.
you put together something amazing. I think people will love it. So take it ahead.
Sure. The entire session that is actually planned ahead comes with few key takeaways, okay? Because there's something that if the audience is committing their time, then we should also have some sort of a commitments with the audience. So I'll quickly get you through the format of the session. I'll quickly open up the one second the deck. Yes. Ashish, is my screen visible to you?
Yes. Yeah.
Perfect. So I'm on the slide, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So as the title says itself, breaking the myths of understanding blockchain and its use cases. To be honest, things are moving ahead, rapidly. Currently, decentralized finance is a term that's actually booming a lot in the whole ecosystem. But I personally think there's still so much that needs to be answered by people who have actually understood this entire tech, not even on the technology scale, but also on the business scale. And for me, use cases plays a vital role because, as I said, I started as a marketeer and a business folk. I think there should be an enough understanding of use cases or where this blockchain technology can actually empower with segments, and that's where we have some sort of takeaways that we've mentioned. So we're gonna go ahead with four main key takeaways. Initially, we're gonna start with understanding the roots of blockchain technology and where does it actually come from. Something beyond Bitcoin, because there's this buzz about Bitcoin a lot. Bitcoin plays a very vital role in the entire ecosystem, but there's so much beyond Bitcoin as well. The second key takeaway gonna be how the money flows in the space. Tejaswini gonna pick up on a very amazing vibe where how the entire money works and how actually it came in existence and stuff. Post which we'll be going ahead with understanding top five sectors that needs or are adopting blockchain on a scale. Here's where we're going to talk about five favorite sectors of mine and Tejaswini, and also the sectors which are in most and popular demands. And the last segment gonna be the myths about blockchain and cryptocurrencies, which are actually revolving around the ecosystem. Yeah, speakers and moderators have already introduced ourselves. Going ahead with understanding the roots of blockchain technology and where does it actually come from. I think what is necessary here to the audience is actually doing a revision. Okay, I run blockchain school, and actually education is something which we wholly focus on. So let's go back and first try and understand what is blockchain technology. Tejaswini, can you pick up on this point?
Sure, Saurabh. So as you can see, blockchain is a distributed database. That means if you imagine a virtual container which contains data inside it, and then it's stored in a form of a blocks. So these blocks are linked chronologically in a sequence way to form as a chain. So now, if you want to modify any data inside a block, then you can't modify it in that same block. You have to add a new block, and that's how the chain goes long. So that's what a brief description about blockchain.
Okay. So this was a bit of technical. If we actually want to understand the closest example of what exactly this block in blockchain is, just go back to the times when we used to actually go to grocery stores, and grocery owners used to write down everything about us, everything that we order, everything that we pick up from the store, and the kind of database that they used to maintain in the big registers. In the similar fashion, if you used to visit few societies, we used to fill our data there. So all these ledgers, are getting on the internet, are getting smart, and that's where the digital ledger wave is where the blockchain is taking us all towards. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. But now the lot of hype is revolving around. Uh, do you actually think that blockchain actually came in existence or Bitcoin came in existence when 2009 thing happened when Satoshi Nakamoto came with the research paper? To be very honest, if we want to understand the roots of blockchain, we'll have to go back in 90s. Uh, the concept of distributed computing that has been around since 1990s, and that's where the actual origin of cryptography, the distributed the computing, and everything actually happened. If we look at the timestamp from 1990 till 2009, there's a lot happened in the space. The internet evolved, the dot com bubble happened, and that's where the adoption towards internet was scaling on scale. Was actually rising on scale. 2009 was a time when something fascinating happened, and that's where people were introduced to a new form of currency. Why 2009? 2008 was a time when the financial crisis happened, the banking systems crashed, the entire stock market, and everything was actually on the verge of disruption. Uh, that's where the entire hype was there, that there is a need of a replacement to the current systems that were existing in 2008 and 9. Uh, a smart person or maybe a group of folks, Satoshi Nakamoto, nobody knows who's that, is a group or a person, and a paper that actually came in front of the masses was actually people were introduced to Bitcoin, and actually that was a paper, a decentralized ledger maintaining by anonymous consensus, and that's where the entire existence of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies and blockchain is laid off. If we look at the entire roadmap of blockchain and cryptocurrencies from 2009 to 2019 or 20, it has been scaled on rapid. If we talk about Bitcoin, it actually came as a digital currency or a concept or maybe a technological term. But to be honest, to build something on this layer, there should be some sort of systems. And there was a need of some technological systems, and that's where Vitalik came with the entire Ethereum concept. 2011-12 was a time when the deployment of cryptocurrencies and applications related to cash happened, but the currency transfer and the digital payment systems were built in 2012 and 13. The market was going well. Everybody was trying to adopt Bitcoin. If we go back to the times, the moment Bitcoin rolled out, and that's where a lot of companies started building their own exchanges, their own applications, and multiple things around blockchain technology. One thing was in the rise, and even today we celebrate that day. Two guys went to a pizza store. They didn't have cash, and they wanted to purchase pizzas, and they actually asked to the pizza seller that we don't have cash. How can we actually trade? And they realized that they have bitcoins. The amount of bitcoins that they have spent to just purchase two pizzas that today cost hardly $10-15, today those bitcoins, the numbers of bitcoins that they spent on purchasing pizzas, could have valued in billions. And that's where the entire value of Bitcoin was actually evolving, and people started realizing the kind of core of it and the value of it. Everything was happening cool, like 2013-14, the financial market and applications using blockchain beyond cash transactions happened. The smart contracts came with Ethereum, Ethereum blockchain network in 2014-15. The permission blockchain network solutions were evolved in like 15-16, and then started the boom of applications around blockchain technology. Still, the journey seems to be a decade old, but there's so much that happened. If we go back in the times 2017-18, when there was something that was too much trending called initial coin offering, the tokens. Everybody wanted to come up with their own token. Everybody wanted to actually monetize the structure of the organization, their concepts, their businesses, and that's where the ICO boom was actually hitting harder on the clock. Uh, it was a great scale, and to be honest, if we technically understand the entire landscape of blockchain and Bitcoin, things are interconnected. Things matters, like the kind of volume that the Bitcoin is actually pumping up every single day. The entire cryptocurrency market actually depends on that as well. And that's where the ICO crash happened. Bitcoin went towards literally to the downfall, and the hit was there. But people started understanding the value of applications over just currency or over just finance. And one of my favorite segments were, how can blockchain can be implemented in multiple sectors to actually empower. Even if we talk about today, there are multiple countries who have adopted blockchain as their core technology. They've been implementing this in their systems, their governance. Uh, like votings are happening on blockchain in few countries. They are tokenizing the entire country. Their democracy, the governance has been upgraded on blockchain. But still, like I think it's still on the research and development phase that the entire market moving towards. The market consolidation and future like sub developments happened of post 2017. Decentralized applications came in existence, and there were multiple things revolving around the space. If I talk about today, because it was COVID situations for past few months, and we've seen the markets, the job market was crashing badly. But I still believe that the jobs in the emerging tech market, not only blockchain, if we talk about AI, if we talk about something that recently came called GTP3, this like evolving term around AI and stuff. If we talk about quantum computing, then there's machine learning, and there's so much in the space. The emerging tech market wanna rapidly scale. Uh, the biggest benefit that COVID has provided to blockchain was uh, the scale that the audience have adopted to go digital, and that has also increased the volume that we trade, the volume that we do on internet every single day. If I talk about India specifically, I don't remember 5 years, 6 years down the line I used to do digital payments, but today for past 1 week I've been staying in Bangalore, and I've been doing all my major payments using my phone pay and Google Pay wallets. So I think the need of digital payments, the need of technology and digitalization has already hit harder. But what actually comes on the top of everything is the central systems that are running all the systems. Today we do trust on banks. We keep all our luxuries, all our money, the gold, all the assets, to be honest, with banks. And there's several cases that happened recently when Yes Bank crash happened. I still remember it was the COVID duration, but still Indian people were standing in queues to actually go and check if their money is still safe or if there's something that happened, because the news has gone so viral. Today, if we actually look at the scenario where we are not actually depend ourselves on the central systems, there's a need of a kind of a peer-to-peer ecosystem, and that's what the blockchain is trying to bring in picture for masses. One of the very favorite application of mine that I came across even before understanding blockchain or Bitcoin was a platform called BitTorrent. I used to download movies from that, and I never analyzed that that platform actually works in a peer-to-peer network, or that actually is a some sort of a similar application that we are moving towards. And yeah, the future looks little great. Like ahead, we're gonna speak a lot about things about sectors, education, healthcare, and multiple. But if you actually want to move ahead, there's one term called cryptocurrency that's been actually booming, because that's one of the very core and very first application of blockchain technology, through which people started recognizing blockchain overall. So how money flows in blockchain space, and I would love to actually invite back Tejaswini, my co-host, to take up on this topic.
Thank you, Saurabh. It was very informative, the previous slide. And let's move on to the question where how money flows in a blockchain space. So, so if you move on, so if you see as man evolved and the necessity of currency came way back, right? So when there was a barter system, and there to purchase the products or anything. So people used to do transfer the products, I mean goods and services for the exchange. So a person has given apple, in place of that the other person used to transfer some grains or something like that. So that was that came into existence where in the uh, long back. Then afterwards, there was some that system didn't work well, and then came the paper currency, and the paper currency also. What happened like so paper currency where you can see like credit cards also came into picture, and then debit cards, then digital wallets, All these were now in boom. So let me tell you an example. Like if we are using our credit card, and suddenly like the bank server is down, or your card got hacked, something like happens, then what you will do? So at that time you can't do any transaction, right? And there it will be a failure, and you will not able to do any transaction at the time. So what has came into picture is cryptocurrency, which now is in boom, and now people are using it for various purposes. And now if I can tell you like cryptocurrency, there are over many cryptocurrencies, or like more than 8,000 by August 5 2020, I can say. And so cryptocurrency, so let me explain the example of how a transaction happens in Bitcoin. So whenever a transaction happens, they will check for authenticity of an identity, and also whether you have balance or not in that wallet. And so once you do the transaction, then what happens? The miner will check whether the transaction is valid or not. So that is done by so they done by solving a very hard puzzle, you can say, and that is called proof of work. And when you do that, it will the person who does the first this solves the puzzle, it will distribute that solution to entire network, and they validate it. And if that validates if it is correct, then the transaction happens and the block is added to the blockchain. So this is how it happens. And coming to what makes cryptocurrency so special. So one is transactions are extremely fast. So you can see, I can give you one example here, that if you go to any other country or where like the currency is different, uh, and there you have to exchange your currency, right? And at that time it is very difficult. Like it takes 2 to 3 days to do the transaction, and it also uh, ask for extra fee, like the second point which I say. So this can be reduced by using cryptocurrency. Now the second point which I told you, like processing fee are minimal here. So for example, you are in San Francisco, and you want to transfer a money to your family who is in London. Then when you do transfer the money, at the time what happens, like uh, banks takes some of the amount as a transaction fee, or you can say the additional fee or something like that. But here in cryptocurrency, there is no fee will be charged. And this process, you can do it 24 by 7. Like you don't need to wait for it. For example, if you see like banks, if you want to do some deposit in bank, and if it is a Friday evening, then at a time if the blank then they will say that okay, you come on Monday, we will do at the time, we will notify you. um, so so here the time, it's taking a lot of time, right? So that could be eliminated by using cryptocurrency. Then recorded data is immutable. Like I said that if you want to modify any data in a block, then it won't happen like that. So you have to add a new block in that, and that data which is there in that old block will be updated in that new block. Then eliminate intermediaries like banks, financial institutions. All these things can be uh, uh, eliminated by using cryptocurrency easily, and it saves a lot of time and cost. So then let's move on to something interesting. Uh,
Tejaswini, I
yeah,
would love to actually give an example to brush up on the entire
sure,
space,
sure.
So to be honest, if I again, like if I go back to times, when the barter system thing was there, because there was nothing to trade. Today, I want to actually live my life, and to live my life, there are certain necessities that are required. I need to purchase water. If not purchase, even if I'm taking it from government, I need to pay the bills. I need to do a lot of necessary stuff to actually stay as a human, to stay alive. And if you go back in times when there was no systems, there was no governance, there was nothing in place. That's where the barter system came in picture. Some people used to grow the grains the way they used to explain. Some people used to grow the grains because they were best at it. Some people used to actually make clothes because they were best at that. And that's where the exchange happened. So it's just a give and take, you know. I give you this for that, and we used to usually do this in our hostel days. Used to do this with Maggie packets, with anything and everything that's around us. What was missing in the entire system was trust, you know, because today if I give you grains, today if I give you the easiest relatable product, coffee, if I buy your coffee, what's the proof of the entire thing, you know? What is that proof of something that I've actually given? Because if I give you coffee, I need something in return. And that's where the fiat and the paper money came in existence. Because if I'm giving you a coffee and if I'm actually fixing a cost, I need that much money in my hand. But again, this doesn't run on a personal basis. This is entirely created by government, the central authorities, because there should be some sort of a check on the entire deals or trades that are happening around the world. The cards were the necessity because with fiat money, even recently the BRR thing happened where different countries' governments started printing a lot of fiat currency, and to actually the way the entire system works is if we need more cash to be flowed in the market, we need to keep some sort of an asset with the systems. And in India, we do it with gold. In US, UK, like multiple countries deal on their own aspects. But when the financial crisis happened, there was so many things that came in front of the masses that this is not happening right inside the system. And that's where digital currencies and the cryptocurrencies were the form of trust. And this is going to keep happening, you know, for the life, because every system has some sort of benefits and some sort of flaws. Today, there's everything that's good about cryptocurrency. Tomorrow, if somebody figures out some sort of flaws, there will be another upgrade or a kind of a substitute to it. Again, going towards the cryptocurrency thing, why actually, and to give you an example, when I started in blockchain space, the first two clients that I did into media and marketing business, I asked them to give me money in dollars. They sent me via PayPal, and I realized something. I was doing, let's say, if I'm transferring you $100 or $1,000, there's a processing fee that is involved. There's a processing time that is involved, and I figured out something. If I'm dealing on little like bigger cost, there's so much I need to actually give in just process. And that's where when we do Bitcoin transaction today, the immediate thing that I found as an escape to accept payments from my clients was Bitcoin. Because the moment I used to send them my wallet address or the code, they used to transfer me the Bitcoin, and immediately I used to receive it. And miners, so in situations like central authorities, they plays a vital role. Here, the entire thing is happening on the internet, and it can't happen like a magic, right? There should be some sort of systems aligned to the process, and that's where miners come in picture. They are responsible to validate the transaction, but they are not aware whose transaction are they validating. They put
Hey, Saurabh,
Yeah.
in the interest of time, should we go to the next
Sure. So now moving ahead with a very interesting part that's quickly taking you through the top five sectors that need or are adopting blockchain at scale. The first one will be the banks and financial institutions. Tejaswini.
Yeah. So actually, banking and financial institutions, like Saurabh, you said that this is your favorite sector. So even it's mine. So coming to the first point, cross-border transaction, as I already told you this, so it eliminates the time cost when you go for when you travel other countries. So it's very helpful to use cryptocurrency, and banks are also adapting that right now. And coming to use of smart contracts can make the process faster. So let me explain you first what is smart contract. So it's a program which runs when certain condition is met. Okay, so once it is the condition is met, then only it triggers it, and then so now now many banks are using this smart contract, and For suppose I can give you an example of insurance where we have to pay money at certain time period. So if we can use smart contract, then it will automatically execute that program, and then the money will be like transferred, something like that. So next is documentation and paperwork can be avoided. Now, if you go to bank and you want to open an account, so there is a lot of paperwork and there is a lot of process there. Now, this can be uh, avoided using blockchain. Then coming to by storing the data. So now I can relate that with the fourth point, where digital identity verification, where so banks right now are doing the KYC process, know your customer, and they are storing the so they are doing this process, like it's take a lot of time. And when if we use blockchain, then we can store the all details in the blockchain, and then there won't be any duplication, right? When we do this, so it also this also saves a lot of time um, and money also. So that's what I can say about banks and financial institutions. And moving on to the real estate sector, so cut intermediaries. So let's say that you want to purchase a land. So if you see now, it's a very long process, right? There are so many brokers involved, and they will charge you money. All these things happens, and sometimes you just fed up with all these things. So we can avoid this process by using blockchain, where as I said that it uh, involves trust right now. So that trust can be built by using that what I said, a proof of work. And coming to reduce cost, so these people also ask money, some fee for the processing, right? So that can be reduced by using blockchain. Then to track property ownership, so suppose if I say that somebody has purchased a land, and if we store it in a blockchain, then uh, we can track that, like ownership. Suppose one person has purchased the land, then he is giving to some other person, then that can be tracked into the blockchain, and then the person again is giving to somebody else. Then here uh, there is no manipulation or any modification of the records, or you can't say like when you do it right now it is done in on the documents, paperwork is done. So if you see, like if it is it gets lost at the time, you don't know like where it is kept, and it will be a lot of loss for you. So by storing that in blockchain, then it would be very easy for us to track your property ownership, and it will also reduce the fraud, which is like interrelated with each other, the second point, the third point, and the fourth point. Now Saurav, can you like you are into education sector, right? So
Yeah.
and you are running the blockchain school. So can you explain about the education part where the blockchain is being used?
Okay, quickly, I'll give you four points that you can see on screen. To create the relativity factor, there are thousands of schools and universities. They are still established in India and even in further countries. Uh, what's the missing factor? Like I do remember there's so much news that was coming up that this university proved as a scam. This university were forging certificates, degrees, and a lot of things. And that is one of the major factor, because as blockchain is a technology for which is empowering traceability and the ownership of the documents and everything that makes the systems easier. That's where blockchain can actually play a vital role. Even with blockchain school, we're trying to bring the entire verification process into the verge of collaborating with some sort of a company who is already doing this in existing things. The degrees and the certificates that are issued by the college can be on blockchain, and that can be verified from anywhere around the world by just accessing the key or accessing the link and like verification process on the Ethereum blockchain network. Uh, Blockchain can help us store the student data that is submitted during the times of admission. Today, if I actually relate to the scenario, a lot of times we share data with the universities and institutes, and this has been used and this has been actually taken in consideration and been misused a lot of times to pitch us some sort of business, some sort of marketing sort of products that are running parallel to the education. And that's where I think if if the data is stored on blockchain, the permission stays liable to us, and that's where it can benefit. Data will remain secured and validated with no chance of fakeness. The fraudulent that I was saying, the fraudulent, the fakeness that happened over the years with the process can be actually empowered using blockchain technology. Education was one of my favorite sectors, over which healthcare now, due to COVID, is been evolving, and I think healthcare has its own sort of values when it comes to blockchain. Um, it helps in maintaining record of all the factors. Like today, we have some sort of diseases, and we've been working, we've been treating, the doctors been treating us. We can keep all those data records stored on blockchain, because today the reports that we get are either in the paper format or either on emails. But how long can we actually take it? Because tomorrow, if you are in a trouble and you are yourself a patient, do you think there's any system that's where doctors can actually access the kind of data which can tell them that you have some sort of issues, or that this is what you're suffering with? Also, to maintain the history of patients. This is where again the fraud things, or whatever is happening. The data cannot be tampered on blockchain and can play another vital role on blockchain. The data related to medical stores, medicines, retailers, suppliers. So this is an entire factor of supply chain, because tomorrow we intake so many medicines. But are we sure that those medicines are real? Because in some other sectors, if we see, there are certain brands which produce limited products to roll out in the market, and we get a lot of first copies and second copies for those as well. Supply chain is the sector which is empowering or disrupting. Blockchain is disrupting to maintain transparencies in the system. And every state would generate their own data, and that will be stored on blockchain. So that tomorrow, if I have certain issues, if I literally want to check the entire process of production of this phone, I can actually access that data if I have certain permissions, and see where's how this entire process happened, straight from production to supply to distribution, and until it came in my hands as a consumer. It would also give you a clear idea of the stage at which the work is. This is for the situation where I have some sort of a default in my product, and I actually want to see this entire thing happen. It's okay to actually figure out the issues if it's lesser units. But if we go beyond 100 units or 200 units of certain product, the challenge lies in we cannot track where the exact issue happened in the process. And lastly, this can also be used as a base data that can be studied to understand the system as a whole. Because as a consumer, we should have all the rights to understand the roots of the product that we are purchasing from the market. Yeah, that's pretty much it about the sectors that we covered in.
Saurabh, uh,
Yeah,
just a minute. Like,
go
I
ahead.
just want to add one thing here for supply
Mhm.
chain. So, if you see in this pandemic situation, uh, I can say that blockchain is adding some advantage here, and people are trying to use it. Like recently I came to know that Telangana government is implementing blockchain to track
Yeah.
the sanitizers and masks. So that's very nice, that that government itself is using this technology in this situation, and it is trying to help the public. So that's very
Mhm.
interesting thing which I came to know
Government of
recently.
Telangana was very active since years,
Yeah.
because they first thought of implementing application. They have done it for the land registries and things in Telangana, even government of
Yes.
Goa. So yeah,
Yes.
it's great. Moving towards the last segment of the entire talk or webinar, the myths. There are so many myths revolving around blockchain and cryptocurrencies in the market. Uh, like Tejaswini, I'm going to ask you,
Yeah.
what's your take on this? Blockchain technology is hacking proof.
Yeah, so like many people think that blockchain technology is hacking proof, but it's not like that. But so they think that okay, this we the blockchain uh, is immutable, and there are so many advantages of it. But somehow, like as a distributed database, so there could be chances that this could be hacked, But what I can say is blockchain technology is adding a layer over it, a protective layer over it, where the existing like centralized institutions or banks, like where they are putting all the data at one place, that's more dangerous than spreading the data into different computers or nodes, what can say. And that distributed network can overcome this hacking proof for certain extent. May
Yeah.
not be completely, but certain extent this can be avoided. That's what I can say.
We are living in the internet age, and I think nothing is called hacking proof. There's nothing that
Yeah.
cannot be hacked. Yes, this is
So,
my
yeah, Saurabh, like then you said about cryptocurrency and blockchain are for like many people think that it is for technology and finance people only. But can you tell us like what all other sectors you can say
I'll give you a simplest
they're
example.
useful?
I myself come from a marketing background. I was not a techie. I don't know how to code, but I'm still learning many things. But I think there's no certain instance where blockchain is limiting towards technology and finance people. Pretty much every role or like every sector or every, let's say, segment of people working in can empower blockchain or upskill on blockchain technology, because to be honest, in every organization there are multiple layers. There's not only technology and finance, there's sales, there's marketing, there's business. And if somebody's working with the blockchain organization, they should think of adopting blockchain and moving further. And about cryptocurrencies, it's that another asset where people can invest in. And and to be honest, I don't think so. If today we are investing in gold or any other assets, we are technology or finance people. We are pretty much anybody and everybody. So that's my take on it. And coming to the very last slide, this was a term which was this was a myth which is revolving around for a decade now. Bitcoin and blockchain is a single entity. Like Tejasvi,
Yeah,
Tejasvi.
so actually, as you said, it's a like where I came to know that this is a like biggest myth, and many people say that Bitcoin and blockchain are the same. Just because they got evolved on the same year, like introduced on the same year, it doesn't mean that both are same. So, so Bitcoin is an application of blockchain technology. It's a currency. And where it comes to blockchain, as I said, that it's a distributed database. So that's how the difference is. Like it's not the same, it's a different. And blockchain has, as Saurabh said, that it can be implemented with various applications. So not only, so we just told only five, but there are many. There are many
There are
more,
hundreds of
and
more.
there is many more to come. So I can give you some example like agriculture, media, communication,
Yeah,
and
music
so
and all.
energy. Correct. So there are many more. So if we explore there, there might be more which can come in future also. So that's how the blockchain technology is up till
Guys, if
now.
you don't mind, is Akshay around?
Yeah, Akshay is here.
Hi, Bud. How's it going?
Akshay, come on board. I want you to tell about this, right? You started the first sort of like a community in India, right? And it became so huge. Tell me from your experience, right? What was the myth initially, and you've been you've been looking at this day in and day out, right? Tell us about what you felt about it. Like, how was your experience with this myths?
Yeah, that's lovely. I think so. The first time I started my session, so our first session was called "Blockchain Beyond Bitcoin." Right? It's amazing how they've illustrated the biggest myths on the first slide itself. Right. So again, just to bring some perspective into this, as Tejaswini mentioned, blockchain is nothing but a database system. Kind of think of it as an accounts ledger, right? And the account that it's managing is that of Bitcoin as a currency. So, for example, think of a CA managing the account of the money that's moving in and out of your company. The Bitcoin blockchain manages a ledger of how Bitcoin is getting exchanged from between whoever owns Bitcoins, right? The entire accounting system, right? And this could be over anything, right? So this was one of the biggest myths, right? I think it could probably also be the idea that cryptocurrencies are a scam altogether, right? That was also one of the myths, and pretty much 2016 to 18, that's what we were telling everyone. Whenever everybody used to hear that we're involved in the blockchain space, they would go like, oh, Bitcoin, the scamsters. Right? That's how it has evolved.
Right.
So again, also, if you talk about myths, see, no technology can be used everywhere, right? And blockchain is definitely not the solution for all. It's amazingly nice for both our speakers today, Tejaswini and Saurabh, to shine light on the exact sectors that it can add value, right?
Yeah.
It is not just a fintech technology, and you could use it in the education space. As they said, supply chain is one of the biggest ever spaces that, and specifically financial supply chain, right? So if you look at invoice discounting, one of the biggest examples ever, a whole blockchain. I wouldn't really call it a blockchain, but yeah, very similar distributed ledger technology. R3 Core is completely based on managing the financial supply chain.
Awesome.
If you see lending, one of the biggest use cases that's been powered on on top of cryptocurrencies through blockchain, right? So these are some of the phenomenal use cases that are outside of the speculation space, that are outside of just the cryptocurrencies. Raise your money for your startup through an ICO kind of a mentality, right? It is way beyond that. You can interface many small areas wherever there is a need for decentralization, right? If I talk about Ashish, blockchain, to me, I see it as wherever there is a monopolistic thing happening, right? You can use blockchain and decentralize a certain, or pretty much the whole aspects of it, right? So if you see, Ashish, one of the first few examples, so the YouTube's founder invested in something called as the Live Peer, which is a decentralized streaming service, right? Stripe's founder Patrick invested in, a decentralized version of it in Stellar, right? So there have been numerous leaders that are saying. So, for example, Jack Dorsey, Twitter's founder, really emphasizes on the importance of blockchain even in social media, right? So there are solutions coming up wherein blockchain is helping people contribute to assessing if a particular piece of information is fake news by just reporting it in a decentralized manner, where there is no one to no centralized authority sort of giving an authenticity to it. There is someone who's reporting it. There's someone who's saying that this particular piece of information is right to be reported as fake news, right? So wherever you could add decentralization, there's a role for blockchain that could come in. So yeah, Ashish, those are my few bits. If you see ballparks where you can implement the technology, and cryptocurrency is an amazing use case. If you have if you're looking out for a 0 to 1 kind of an opportunity, I think there is nothing more disruptive than cryptocurrency during this day and age.
Awesome. Thanks, Akshay. Saurabh, I think that's the end of the session.
Yeah.
Wonderful, man. I think from talking about what the technology is about, to its applications, to the sectors, to some of the myths, I think you guys have covered it all. So I hope people who attended had a tremendous value from this. Now, if guys who are seeing this, right, if you have any questions, right, there is an option called raise your hand if you want to come on camera and ask the question. So feel free to do so, right? Meanwhile, we wait for some questions, right? So, Saurabh and Akshay,
Yeah.
where do you think the future is, right? 5 years down the lane, right? How, from an Indian perspective, I'm not talking about world right now, right? Let's talk about India, local for local, right? So, where do you think, how accessible will blockchain be to everyone? Are we going to use it as a form of currency everywhere, right? Where do you think the whole system is going to change around blockchain? And what has been your initiative this year around it, or what's upcoming for you guys, especially from both the communities that, Saurabh and Akshay, you guys are running?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Saurabh, I would let you take a dig on it. I have like an extent, like a little expanded answer. So I'll go
Okay.
second, but yeah, go for it.
Okay. So personally, I think 5 years awareness gonna play a vital role. Very less people are in the space right now, and I think if you look at any of the traditional technologies, it has took years to actually fit this in the minds of folks that this is what this technology brings for you. And I think awareness gonna play a very vital role. Any big organization today, if I talk about big exchanges like WazirX and more, everybody is moving towards some sort of education arm, because education will bring more awareness. And a second important thing, that the thing Ashish asked, that can Bitcoin become uh, one of the currencies to trade in our real life kind of thing. I think that will take some time. There's so much maturity that is needed to the space, as per my understanding. But as experts are on board, like Akshay can take ahead.
Saurabh, I totally relate to what you said there, Saurabh, and I think Tejaswini is going to have some interesting perspective as well. But just to share mine, and it is probably something that I'm thinking of could not be necessarily true, right? But I think this version of evolution is happening in the blockchain space. So I've seen blockchain from the idea wherein only Bitcoin was a value. Then came in smart contracts that just brought about this whole notion of distributed internet, right? And for through 2016 to 2018, there was nothing apart from distributed internet that was as sexy to talk about in the tech space. But if you look at 2019, what happened was regulators really brought about this kind of ban in across the globe. And I've been to multiple countries, spoken with a couple of countries regulators in India. I've had policy driven sort of conversations as well. What everybody has realized is that you're talking about such a drastic world wherein the current power structures are sort of you know kind of at loggerheads with these new systems, right? So it is completely right for Saurabh to say that this is going to take some time. Awareness is probably the key to things, right? But on top of it, I feel adoption. I feel now
Yeah.
we've reached to the point wherein technology is ready. There are numerous solutions wherein scalability has sort of struck in, but there are not enough applications that are taking that to another level. So be it Ethereum ecosystem, we're definitely seeing CryptoKitties in the past brought down the whole, sort of network. But today, which are those applications that are used to those tunes, right? Apart from, let's say,
Yeah.
parallel to the Swift infrastructure in the fintech space, right? So that's what, on the back end, Ripple or Stellar or, Bitcoin probably wants to replace through, the various, what do you say, remittances based wiring network that they've created, right? So I feel apart from all of this, what's happening is adoption is going to happen on platforms today. No matter what you talk about, every piece of commerce or engagement is shifting to the platform. Be it the Ubers or Olas that we get into, to the Flipkarts or Amazons we buy things from, to the Netflix that we stream on. Everything's happening on a platform, right? So my piece of insight is that blockchain, to reach adoption, will find a way to add value to these platform ecosystems, right? And personally, in our organization and the 100 Days of Code initiative that Tejaswini went through, we sort of zero in on this whole ideology because we have figured out that if you look at the broader ecosystems of any platform, you would realize that there are so many gaps. It is unprecedented even for the ones who thought about bringing adoption to their platforms. Even they never thought that it's going to see this much of a scale, right? And that is why when you're seeing these big these economic designs sort of getting enlarged, you're seeing that there are gaps within their ecosystems. And we have sort of brought down these gaps into three categories. And without taking too much time, I'll sort of share that very very simplistic way that we understand that there is a gap in stakeholder alignment. So for example, if Flipkart has distributors, sellers, could be distributors or retailers, right? And then buyers. What you're seeing is Amazon or Flipkarts, they have a focus on the users, but what they fail to realize is the marketplace does not work if the merchants don't get enough value. If you see Stripe, you know, or Shopify, these are some of the platforms that are anchored around merchants, and they sort of broadside Amazon like platforms by focusing on merchants. But you will not see that there is a good parallel, right, between all these players. And how I have figured out this whole thing is essentially in the idea that if you see the government, in the last 3 years, the government had to come in and sort of regulate these spaces in a way wherein the platform teams don't sell more than a certain portion of inventory, because then they start sort of taking the business away of their own stakeholders. They start competing with their own stakeholders, right? So this is one of the problems. Another problem is the one of common goods. So what we call it, what we call as sort of benefits for, let's say if you look at the gig economy workers, these gig workers, what is their benefit? If let's say I am going to deliver something on Swiggy as a delivery executive, if something happens to me, who sort of takes care of me while I'm at work, right? In traditional enterprises, you would always have employees, so sort of employers taking care through insurance and everything. But where is that component for gig workers, right? So this whole space we call as a gap in common goods. And then there is a third whole broader landscape. What we call is that the problem of ownership, right? I bought something off of Flipkart, a OnePlus phone, realized that in the box there was a stone, right, instead of the phone. And since I wasn't there when it got delivered, I hadn't opened it. And my mom was like, I'll wait for this to be opened until he comes in. And she paid because it was cash on delivery. But, later on when I opened it, there was a stone in it. And there was like a huge, sort of hassle in trying to get Flipkart to realize what has really happened, because they did not know if I changed that phone with something else, right? If and they sort of shrugged off the responsibility with the seller, right? So now in that whole case, if you see, the benefits are of the platform teams, the responsibility is that of kind of the sellers, right? So there is a mismatch of ownership if you talk about benefits or if you talk about responsibilities. And we feel that this whole landscape is where blockchain will play a huge role, right? And we feel that some portions, bits and portions of it can be solved through blockchain based extensions. So the idea is, so for example, if somebody is building an education course, you see today there is Coursera, which has its own independent review system. You see Udacity, which has its own independent reviewing system. You see Udemy and likes of that, Simply Learn and all of that. All of these have their own sort of platform reviewing system, and it is in their interest to promote courses that are on their platforms, right? So what about, how do you benchmark the quality of a course, right? Just saying that, you could have a decentralized review system that could actually be plugged into all of these platforms and could be in a decentralized way showcasing what the review is, right? And this could actually extend, the value to such an extent that, a review does not have to be logged in on a course, particularly that's being, sort of hosted on Udacity or on Coursera or on XYZ, right? This is just an example of this extension design that we are saying, that you can unlock a user from a restricted platform ecosystem. You can connect him to the whole industry, and they can be, these extensions that act as a bridge to different platforms, right? And that is where I feel decentralization is going to add power, because platforms know the game of creating a platform on top of an economic industry. They are not going to let another platform come in, right? That is why decentralization can add and bridge the value gap that there is. And there are just so many gaps that can probably be filled in every industry, and I think that is the future in my mind. That is the key to adoption.
Perfect, man.
Awesome, cool. I mean, I think that was wonderful.
So can I add something over it?
Go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so sir, as you guys has explained about it, like how important is blockchain in today's world. So I also wanted to share my own experience when, when I came to know about 2 years back, I just was hearing this word blockchain. I was thinking, like, what is this word blockchain and what is it all about? Then I started exploring it, and at some point I was hearing these words like, no, there is no future for blockchain, all these things. But again, when I explored, when I came to know that there is a bigger community of it, like blockchain India, and now recently I came to know about blockchain school. So it's like I'm so happy that people are coming forward and they are contributing this to this technology by uh, by building a community and helping each other. So this is what, like, when when internet came into picture, nobody believed that okay, it can do wonders. The same thing is with blockchain, right? So now we can see that there is a future in blockchain.
That
And
goes for a tweet on blockchain India.
so it's all about like people mindset and to have belief in that technology. That's it.
Awesome. I mean, there you go, right? I mean, she came in, not knowing, and you guys like were running a community, and now she did the 100 days program, got a scholarship with you, and all that things are happening, right? So it's wonderful. So yeah, I think it's 8:10 now, right? A lot of good conversations have happened, right, over blockchain. So, Akshay, you want to just shed some light over blockchain India, and I think sort of you also need to take some time to talk
No,
about your
so
blockchain
I
tools.
first want to add something,
Yeah, sure. Go
I
ahead.
was looking at a chat, and Ritam Kaur was asking it constantly. I thought we should answer,
Yeah.
but somebody from our own community, Chetan, he answered it very nicely. Chetan, thank you so much. Akshay wrote, "Bitcoin is a scam biggest with ever." Dude, I'll tell you some one small experience. Like we have more than 10,000 students learning online on blockchain school, and I personally deal with all the customer chats and support in majority. So the biggest the amount of number of questions that I started receiving after all those Bitcoin scams started happening on YouTube and Twitter, give 1 Bitcoin, take 2 Bitcoin back, all the Twitter scams that happened. Dude, I think hackers and scammers are actually ruining the entire vibe of blockchain technology and Bitcoin, and nobody can stop it. Like obviously there should be some sort of things that can happen, but yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So yeah, sort of.
We've got another question also. I think that's for you, Saurav.
Now, of course, educating people is important, but employing them is also crucial. What are plans to increase? I'll speak about this in my part. I have something very interesting to speak about. Akshay, you can go
Sure.
ahead with.
Sure.
Yeah.
So Rahul, you've sort of hit the nail on the head. I think there are two. I mean, there are three angles to it. One is helping entrepreneurs with funds, and that's what Tejaswini got. 4 lakhs in grants, right? Direct money, and then the scholarship is more like an incubation at DraperU, right? So that is the first angle to it. The second is the foremost important. India works on jobs, right? So we have the biggest ever job market here, and the idea is how can we get jobs. So our answer to this is, buddy, we so having worked on exactly about 8 out of 10 top 10 companies in the blockchain space, what we realized was everybody is anchored on India with a very developer focused mindset, right? And we realized this way back when we started the community, and we had an early focus. So even today we retain about 47% of our members are developers, right? So we ensure that these developers, as well as marketeers, community managers, evangelists, all of these get jobs in these outside companies who are looking to, one, again, empower India with sort of the back end service gigs. In a lot of places, if you see Consensus, we launched Consensus in India. There is this whole Consensus Ventures that is empowering products to be built, right? So these developers are getting those opportunities, as well as opportunities to work with. So for example, Consensus India in its first year employed about 40 people, right? So collectively we have right now been able to get about 350 jobs out there. But the idea is we've partnered with all of the firms. Now we have almost about 400 companies within our community. So the idea is the moment somebody needs to hire for a particular skill set, we start shooting out requests. Happy to have you all be a part of the community. I've shared the links via chat. So that's something that's free for you to access. It takes nothing. I understand jobs is the key. Education, obviously, you've already highlighted, Rahul, right? Just to add to that, everybody, I've shared links to the community. I would love to have you be a part of it. What we've also realized with giving out job opportunities, as well as helping our partner funds sort of invest in startups, what we've realized is there is a genuine gap in industry ready skills, right? And that is focused on employability. We have started this program on 100 days of code, wherein there are two sets of audiences that we're working with. One that wants to get hired. Two, people that are wanting to take their blockchain projects to the next level and they don't have those enough skills yet. What we're doing is taking them through 100 days curriculum, right? Every day you study for an hour, a common topic that everybody in the community has to go through or that is participating in the initiative, right? What then happens is you're all learning collaboratively, so you discuss your doubts collaboratively as well. And then we have these industry developers that are acting as trainers that once you've all exhausted your capabilities to take a dig at the problem, we sort of help you at 1 hour of session of your doubts being resolved, right? Tejaswini has gone through the same thing, so she can speak for how much it contributes. But the idea is, we do this for about 70 days, wherein we ensure that you're ready in terms of all your skills. Nothing is theoretical. We understand that in India the educational institutes do a great deal in terms of basic theory. So this is everything that's assignment led. What we help you with is every every topic has less theory and more assignment. So you'll have to go through by the 70th day. You will be in a comfortable place wherein you can think of your own idea and start mapping that out through code, right? And you do that for 30 days and then you pitch, and we're also practicing your pitches with you. We're also mentoring you on the idea. We bring in some mentors from our ecosystem, and the idea then becomes how do you take this to the level wherein you can pitch, right? And when you pitch, what is coming out of that pitch? So we got about $22,000 coming distributed the top 3 winners, right? So that is sort of the whole piece that we're working on with 100 days of code. I would love to have employability and sort of education both being tackled through that initiative. Happy to have you guys be a part of it. Reach out to me. I'll share a link as well. You can leave your details, and one of our executives is going to get in touch with you and shed some more light on how it works, right? Yeah, that's me. Saurabh, you want to sort of get the same point?
Perfect, man. And I think the entire community is running towards the same mission, and that's how the community grows all together. And I have learned from Blockchain India. I've attended their sessions, and that's where the entire understanding thing happened in early days. And I think with Blockchain School, the current focus is actually the way Akshay said, companies are actually taking interest. The only thing is they are demanding developers. So currently going a little bit of manual, and the one very important focus, and this is the mindset that I can speak about, is people still think that certificate gonna play a very vital role, but I think portfolio is gonna play a bigger role. If you have actually built applications in the space, if you have actually tried and hands-on on some certain applications, certain things on blockchain space, I think you can land job by yourself. And but then we exist. What we are trying to do with Blockchain School is helping build your portfolios, doing nano experiences, live classes, and all that stuff, doing a little bit of traditional but an upgraded way. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah, like
Guys, we'll just take one last question.
Yeah.
If anything else, feel free to reach out to Akshay or Saurabh. We'll also send a post-event emailer to reach them out. One question from Live Unite, I really want to get that, right?
Akshay,
Yeah.
so I was actually reading that out. They said, why should I choose blockchain because it takes more computing power?
Buddy, okay. So again, this is one of the mistakes that a lot of people committed. A major reason for POCs not translating is because early implementation by all of us, and I have been guilty of the same problem, is that we've tried to fit in blockchain everywhere. But wonderfully, what it also shines a light on is the fact that trust can only come in a decentralized way through blockchain-based technology, right? I would expand it to distributed ledger technologies, bring in IOTA, bring in R3 Corda, and sort of Hashgraph. There are a few sort of in the idea or in the essence they're quite alike, but there is some or the other tweak at it. But the idea comes from the fact that if you have a piece of information lying on one computer, if it gets changed on that one particular computer or that source, you have no way of realizing if that has been changed, right? You have no way, and I mean, you can definitely tweak it by bringing your own solutions, but in a custom way. No other database technology offers something like what blockchain does, right? So how Tejaswini brilliantly, highlighted was the fact that, so for example, we have like a whole ledger being maintained. And I've shared a sort of a link also of the whole blog, right? It explains beautifully this whole idea. But in short, it is, if we're if the four of us consider us as we're playing, we're at a party and we're paying for some transactions. So let's say each one of us is paying some amount, and let's say we're passing around a piece of paper, and we were writing something down there, right? For the sake of simplicity, on a piece of paper you can change it with let's say if it's written with pencil, you can erase it and change the information. That is how bits can be changed, right? You cannot find a track of what was there before if somebody fiddled with the exact information that was there. What happens when all four of us are maintaining one piece of paper by ourselves is the fact that if let's say I was keeping my track, Tejaswini was keeping her track, Saurabh and Ashish were doing the same. If I change something on my piece of paper and I compare different pieces of paper, I would still realize that I fiddled somewhere. I tried to change the account somewhere, right? And that is what blockchain does intrinsically. So you can think of all of us as four different sources of storage, right? And the moment something gets recorded by a machine, the data gets recorded in all of these storage points. Now, if a hacker gains access to, let's say, Ashish's storage facility at Draper Startup House, what's going to happen is they're not going to be able to get to Delhi. Or even if they get to Delhi, they're not going to be able to get to the other two cities wherein our other friends are sort of managing their storages. So that's how it becomes even more difficult, that in the right time, you sort of hack into the systems of so many members together maintaining, an authentic record of, the whole system, right? That is where blockchain adds value. And any such, there is an overkill in computation. All of us are definitely spending more time, more resources in maintaining this account. But, when it comes to your bank account, and when it has millions of rupees, or if you look at a bank's particular infra being maintained, there is so much information, there is so much value out there. That is where an overkill of such a computation level will make sense, right? That is where blockchain can add value. So think about those use cases wherein the value of the system is so much more than how much you're spending on computation itself.
Perfect, Akshay.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. And I think that's where when you highlighted the adoption point, and I highlighted awareness point, I think both things are simultaneously very necessary, because people are trying to think that I want to build an application and it's the blockchain goes at that. It's not like that. The awareness is something that is lagging.
Awesome,
Now,
guys.
conclusion.
Conclusion, right? Who wants to go for it? I think you three should go for it, right? One short conclusion for everything.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think Tejaswini is sort of sitting very patiently. Tejas, your last sort of note for everyone.
Yeah, so what I can say is blockchain has a lot of future in coming days. So I feel that as you people came to this session, just because a small belief would be there, like I can learn something from this session. That's why you people came, right? So that's how, when you get some positive vibes from this session, so you will certainly believe in that and you start working on it. And that's what I can say. Just believe in that technology and go forward and work on it.
We all started this way, everybody.
Take a list.
I just want to thank DSH India. I want to thank Akshay for taking out time, and I just want to thank everyone to be here, like everybody who's listening to us. And I enjoy doing all this stuff.
Yeah. So my time, I think one, Tejaswini and Saurabh, I've learned quite a great deal from you guys. It's amazing to see that, what we started back 3 years ago, you guys are, sort of taking ahead their baton, and we're all together, awareness, education, jobs, opportunities, all are going to be solved when the community comes together. And with that, idea of collective consciousness, we've built Blockchain India, which is made for everyone to come, share and learn about the best projects, the best developments, some of the key, initiatives or opportunities in this space. Everything comes together at, Blockchain India as a community. I would love to welcome you all. I've shared, sort of the links to it. And I look forward to you guys joining. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Blockchain School. Thanks, Lenrev. Thanks, Ashish and Draper Startup House. This has been an immense pleasure.
It's been a pleasure for me always, being Draper, Tim is a fan of blockchain and all that, right? But, just want to end out with saying, guys, I hope you had a good show. I hope you had an amazing value, first of all, and understanding of the technology. So, just on a conclusion, if you guys are coming out to Bangalore, don't forget to visit Draper Startup House. We help startups in multiple ways, may it be for your stay, work, belong to a community, talk to guys like these, connect to guys like these. We help you in funding as well. So we launched a syndicate this year, right? Global syndicate for you to go and apply and raise funding from the Draper network and the local ecosystem, right? So I put in the website, up there, so you guys can go and explore all that you can. Akshay?
Last note, just want to add on to how much you gain from Draper Startup House. Apart from everything that Ashish has listed, something that I have realized is the power of the Draper ecosystem. And specifically, when I was at the Draper Startup House the last time, before all of this lockdown and all of these things happened, was there is an immense energy and there is an immense drive to help products. And that is something that is unlike anything I've seen anywhere. And I think if you want to succeed, that is the place to be. They will 10x the amount of energy or dedication you have in building your product.
Dude, this is my 5th day, and I can feel the vibe.
Great job, Ashish, and I really admired the whole initiative and the whole team.
Thank you, Akshay. We have somebody who requested a mic access. I don't know what he want to say, but okay, let me get him on.
Farhan is also a Draper U alum.
Okay. Hey, Farhan.
So everyone, I just request you guys, there is a fundamental of entrepreneurship going on from next week. Just register, and guys, it's amazing. You'll meet new people from around the globe.
Hey, Farhan, by the way, it's not, I don't know if you know, the thing got moved to October.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So guys, it's amazing session. Please join and y'all will enjoy. Seriously, y'all will connect with new people. It's amazing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Farhan, for coming and, putting those words out. Okay, guys. Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye. Good evening.
Rock.
Yeah, nice talking to you all.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, bye.